Hey everybody, welcome to Ice Cave Radio. That's right, it's time for another episode. We're almost doing this pretty weekly, pretty consistently now. I'm proud of us. We're doing it. We're making it happen. We're kind of slow on everything else, but we're doing this.
I really wish you hadn't have said that. I had a similar thought recently where I was like, man, there's so much more that I want to do, but at least we've got this back to a regular cadence. And now that we've said it, something's going to happen. So
I know, right? I know. It is what it is. And that's the problem when you're an adult with children and a job and all that kind of stuff. We do what we can. So we want to at least get the podcast out to you. All the other stuff I feel like is kind of icing on the cake. And if we can get to it, we can get to it, But we're glad you're here with us for this, especially Charmer today, because we had a big announcement about the next expansion that's going to happen, and we're going right from an all ships expansion, which is great, to a Force expansion, which is going to be awesome. So we're going to be talking about Legends of the Force a lot this episode. That's going to be the bulk of it, just kind of going over what's been revealed. But before we get there, let's talk locals. We always mention our locals a little bit. As we record this, it is Thursday afternoon. As soon as we're done, I'm about to sleeve up a Poe Dameron deck and go for it. We were working on a Poe Cunning list, which I think there's potential there, but I'm gonna go Poe ECL first. I'm gonna play a little bit of the generally accepted better Poe combination right now. But I do have faith that there is a good Cunning list in there somewhere.
I agree. I think that it's just going to be one of those things where we kind of figure out the reps, but it's nice to revisit something that's going to feel kind of like Sabine Cunning, excuse me. I almost said ECL out of habit.
Right.
Sabine Cunning that you and I enjoyed so much. And I do think that you can kind of almost do like a space version of that with Poe.
Totally.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's Poe's just got so much potential as a leader, and he requires a lot of finesse, right? I think to play Poe well, you need a very good level of knowledge of what your opponent can do to you. You need to know their decks. You need to know if it's safe to put him on a ship. You need to know if it's not safe to put him on a ship. What's the likelihood that you're going to get stuffed for the turn? Because right now a lot of people are avoiding him because it's just risky, right? You pay one to put him on a ship, and they kill the ship, or they exhaust the ship or something, and you're like, well, I have less resources. Now things are going poorly. And that can be mitigated if you kind of know what the matchup is you're going into. I think he's a good leader. I think he just requires a high level of game knowledge to pilot, no pun intended, well. So I have a lot of faith in the leader. I really enjoy playing him, so I'm excited to explore that further. But what are you playing? You've been working on an Iden list, right?
Yes, I have even made more iterations since the last time that we spoke. I have remembered my love of Admiral Oswalt, and as a result of that, I'm revisiting some actually pretty interesting combos with it. But yeah, I've been working on an Iden list mostly because I've been trying to figure out what, at least in the near future, I'll put it that way, what is it that could maybe beat Jango consistently? That's kind of my starting point. And I feel like some sort of vigilance-based control can get the job done. I think Kira has a good shot potentially. I also think Krennic has a good shot, and I've started putting together a really solid Krennic list, I feel like. But I started with Iden just because with the incidental healing, and because even her leader being shielded, again, that 4 health is normally a liability, but against Jango with all of the pings and trying to exhaust, that shield was also pretty relevant. So yeah, I've been working on Iden. I think I've got her in a spot where I really like where she's at for that matchup, and so now it's just kind of shoring everything else up so I don't just auto lose to the rest of the field.
I mean, we should talk about Jango as well before we get into the Legends of the Force thing, because right now Jango is a big part of the discussion around the competitive side of the game, and for good reason too. We just had our first sector qualifier ever for the game that happened over in Spain, and we're not going to touch the controversy that happened with the quote unquote missed triggers and all that. I have opinions about it. You do too, but I feel like I don't want to talk about it until I complete my research into it, and there's been so much said about it already. It may not even be worth, bringing up. Either way, it's unfortunate that it happened. But honestly, I think what's more unfortunate is that we had 7 out of the top 8 be Jango Tarkentown. It was all relatively the same list. There were little differences here and there, but only a Piet Cunning managed to make the top 8 besides all these Jango Tarkentowns. So And I honestly don't know if that's going to change a whole lot as we see these other bigger tournaments happen, as we go into our next PQ season, as we go into the sector qualifiers that are happening in the US soon, the regionals a little bit later. I do worry that Jango will be that dominant, you know, and I think indirect damage is a big part of it. Obviously, the War Juggernaut coming out is a big part of it too. But the question then becomes, we saw them restrict Boba Fett. Will another Fett get the same treatment? I want to get your opinion on that.
I think that it's very likely. I don't know when it will happen because I think a lot of people just want it to happen now.
Yes.
Historically, I have been a bit more conservative, I think, than others because I don't think that one event makes things. And I have seen in other games where something comes out incredibly strong right out of the gate, and then with time it settles, right?
Sure.
So I don't know if it's going to happen like immediately or if they'll just wait for the normal cadence for announcements and then maybe they'll have enough data points. But right now, with the data points that we do have, it's pointing toward that Jango will likely be gone.
Yeah, and I will say that I am kind of crossing my fingers for that because I agree with what you're saying too, and I traditionally have been very conservative about like changing things. I believe that there are answers out there. That said, I think Jango has the kind of same issues that Boba Fett from Set 1 had, where it's a combination of being extremely strong and extremely easy to pilot. Like, let's be honest, it is not difficult to play Jango Fett. You play cards, they do damage, you exhaust the things they do damage to. And although it is only once per turn, right? You know, it is something where you can very easily identify the biggest threat and remove it, you know? So it's got that combination of things. I do believe that there are answers out there. Absolutely, there are decks that stomp Jango Tarkin Town. But I think those decks require both very specific building that will then make them weak against other decks that they wouldn't be weak against otherwise, and it requires very specific play patterns that are outside what I think the intended norm for the game are. And so it's not necessarily, again, it's the same thing as with Boba. It's not necessarily the strength of the deck in a bubble. It is the effect of the deck overall on the metagame, right? It is the way it distorts both what you can build, again, with Cunning and Villainy, which is the same thing we saw before, but then also what people are building in that they need to have a response for this one deck and how big of a chunk of the game as a whole is cut out because of that. And I think it's a lot. So I am hoping that Jango gets restricted / banned as well. I don't think there's any one card that you can point to that says that it makes this deck too strong. I know some people have been saying, "Oh, Triple Dark Raid is just." It's not Triple Dark Raid. That card operates perfectly fine in a lot of other decks where it's strong, but it's not too strong. The problem is the leader. The problem is that there's so much ping damage right now in there because of indirect and because of things like War Juggernaut. The leader ability is just too strong right now and too easy to use effectively. So. I don't think this is anything but a win for the game if they restrict it, right? I think people are going to be very happy about that. I think, it's just like the Boba thing. Sure, there's a lot of people that love playing Boba Fett. I like playing Boba Fett. He's a really fun leader. But I think we were all happy to see the game open up, right? I mean, we got a really, really great meta after that happened. And I think we can get something similar after Jango is removed too. I think the game will be in a much healthier state.
Yeah, I will say this. What I think part of the problem is that right now, with us hitting a pretty competitive season for the game, maybe for the first time ever, with the qualifiers, and we are 3-4 months away from Galactic Championship at this point.
It's coming up fast, yeah.
Folks are kind of focusing on trying to play the best deck that they can, and whether or not Jango is or isn't that, what matters is perception, right? And sure. I do think that with that first event, if there's not like a major course correction by a second or a third event, then even if there are things that exist, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to want to try it. Nobody's going to want to crack the code. Everyone's going to play it safe. And I don't blame them.
For sure.
That's what you do when you're playing competitively. And so at that point, it's one of those things where This is the hard thing about card games in general, especially from a game design standpoint, is that sometimes you don't necessarily, ban or suspend or restrict things just based on balance. You do it on player experience. And this is one of those situations where it very well could just be player experience will be 1,000 times better if they suspend him.
I think it will. And I think if you, when I talk to the higher level players around my area, and hey, what's the best deck? It's kind of like they laugh. I'm like, well, obviously it's Jango, I mean, so player perception, is definitely skewed towards Jango being the strongest deck right now. And there's a couple other options, right? But if you're really, really serious about winning a major tournament right now as a player, I think you're going to bring Jango. And again, that's not a good state. You want to have, you want to have choice, So I'm hoping they do something about it. I hope it is the leader that gets targeted, because I think it is the leader specifically that is, causing the issue here. And again, I'll say, like, it's not a bad thing to remove problem cards from a meta. I mean, that's something every card game in the history of card games has had to do. Recognizing those and making quick actions to relieve the pressure of those, I think is a mark of a healthy competitive game. They moved pretty quick when they needed to on Boba Fett. And so I'd like to see them move quick on Jango as well. And I think if they do, that's not a be like, oh, learn how to print cards. That's a, hey, you've made thousands of cards at this point. Obviously, there are going to be problem ones that emerge. Thank you for addressing that quickly. It shows you really get the game and you really care about the community. So I think it's just a win all around if Jango is removed for a while, And that's about it. Now, I hope it happens. It seems like we're going to get some sort of competitive related discussion announcement thing on the 9th. So next Wednesday, according to their live streams, they said that's going to be geared around talking about the competitive side of the game. So if it happens, I think a lot of people are guessing it's going to happen then. So I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, I kind of got my fingers crossed for a Jango list meta going forward here. We will see. He's a fun deck, though. I mean, just like Boba, it's fun to just tap everything. But but not so much fun for your opponent too, and not so much fun when it's only mirrors. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about no cave poll this week, because we just forgot. It happens pretty frequently. We'll get back to it eventually. And so let's talk about the Legends of the Force. We talked a bit about what some stuff we're less excited about with the game and all that. Now let's talk about something that we're very excited about, which is the next expansion, which is extremely exciting. I'm very, very hyped about this. Let's get into it. There's the splash art. First of all, Baylan Skoll is just a great character. A very pleasant surprise with the Ahsoka TV show. To have a new character come into Star Wars, that's exciting and fun to watch. Tragic that the actor playing the character passed away, and Ray Stevenson, of course, passing after the first season was shot. But man, what a great character. And when they recast him, hopefully the next actor will be able to kind of bring that same presence that Ray Stevenson was able to. Yeah,
I thought that they had announced the recast was going to be
was it official?
Rory McCann.
I know that was the rumor. I didn't know if that was official.
Yeah, maybe it's not official, but I just remember seeing that was being floated around, and I think that would be fine. I mean, obviously, Ray Stevenson is going to be really hard to fill the shoes of. Mm-hmm. I think he's a far better actor than folks give him credit for, because when I point out to people yeah, man, he was the guy who was Punisher in Punisher Warzone, and he was one of Thor's friends, and he's all these different characters that you're like, wait, really? It was that guy? And you kind of forget.
Yeah.
But I think Rory, if that ends up
it is official. It is official.
Replacement. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that he will do as good of a job as can be expected. And I loved that character. I also love Shin, so I'm hoping we see more of her as well.
I'm sure we will. Yeah. But I think this will be good casting, though, for sure. Yeah. Oh, he played Garp in One Piece too, didn't he? Oh man, I didn't even realize that until now. That's sad too. That's another major loss for that show.
Yeah, that's just it, right? It's one of those things where you're like, man, you look at his stuff and you're like, wow, he played all of these. I remember all of these, but
yikes. Well, there you go. I mean, enough about Ahsoka though. I mean, I had fun with that. I had fun with that show. I hope season 2 delivers. We'll see if I didn't feel like Thrawn was the smartest in that show.
Yeah.
He didn't seem like he was always one step ahead, which Thrawn kind of should be written as. But we got time to fix that too, I suppose. We'll see. Either way, let's talk about the card game though. We got the Witches of Dathomir on there. We got Savage Oppress, which is, let's be honest, probably one of the weaker names in Star Wars, but kind of a cool character in Clone Wars on the art. But let's look at the cards themselves. First off, I thought, Charmer, that the best way to approach this would be to look at the Force token. That is kind of the crux, it seems like, of this set. It's just a token that says, Force token, the Force is with you. When you use the Force, remove this token from play. So it seems like it's kind of an extra resource that you'll be able to gain from things that we'll look at in a moment. But first of all, I really like the art. I like that they kind of have this sort of, Dagobah overlay over the, what looks like kind of a traditional token art. It's kind of a neat design. It's cool.
Yeah, I think that this token looks good. I think that getting something that will be, whether it's, a prestige or a hyperspace or something with this, will end up actually looking at kind of outstanding.
Yeah.
I also wanted to point out, because it was implied, I think, when the cards first started circling, and it's implied with the text here, but when they put the article out with the official announcement, you can only have one Force token at a time. So it's something that you have or you don't. You are either one with the Force or not.
The Force is either with you or it isn't. It just says right on the token too, the Force is with you. But I like that it's the type of thing where, great art aside, you can kind of slide it under your base if you want to and have the Force sticking out on the bottom. So you can incorporate it into the leader base sort of setup in the middle without having it take up too much extra space. I like that it's kind of seems like it's designed that way. But yeah, I mean, the Force being just sort of a single token that you bring in and out of play does open up lots of room for great art variants, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that is something we see, as lots of different Force tokens that correspond with different characters or light side, dark side. I want to have a flexible Force token that I can, play with, make it match my deck, I think that's cool. Anyway, great art on this one as well. Now let's check out how you get the Force. We've got bases. 2 bases have been revealed. There's a 28 HP base, so slight hit point deficit for command here, and it says when a friendly Force unit attacks, the Force is with you. In parentheses, create your Force token. So there you go, right there on the base. Whenever a friendly Force unit attacks, you get to generate the Force token. So that's a way to, theoretically, depending on the deck building, consistently bring it back. And I think importantly, this also kind of prevents Force-based decks from running ECL if they're in command, not as a leader. So I do like a reason to not run ECL in command, despite how good that card is. It's nice to kind of see something else push that out.
Yeah, what's also interesting to me is this is the common base. And I know that, we're going to see, I don't know if you put it in your slideshow, but I know that it's been revealed that there's already a second one. There's a blue one. It's the exact same thing. It's just Vigilant
Charmer,
28.
That's my next slide. There you go. Yeah.
So, what I was getting to is that it's looking like, or all signs are pointing to, that this will be your basic base for this set, which is really interesting when you start approaching things from a limited standpoint, right? We're so accustomed to having those 30 health bases when you're drafting, when you're playing sealed, and now we're potentially going to live in a world where it's just always 28 and has the Force mechanic.
And it's interesting, too, that they have the same ability, right? When a friendly Force unit attacks, the Force is with you. So it is the same kind of method to generate that. So it seems like, and I would agree, it seems like we're probably going to get cunning and aggression bases that do the same thing, right? But that seems to be sort of the benchmark, the base benchmark for generating the Force is if you have a Force unit and it attacks, you're going to get the Force. And so you'll always have that kind of basic way of making it happen in some of these Force heavy decks, which I would imagine we're going to see a lot of them as we see more cards. We also had our Spotlight leaders revealed, which we'll go through those. We've got the leader themselves and then some supporting cards that they revealed. So the first one is going to be Darth Maul, which is pretty exciting. Do you want to talk about Darth Maul or should I?
I can talk about it.
Go for it. I'll talk about Qui-Gon then.
Darth Maul is somebody who has an action of exhaust and use the force, aka lose your force token. I just love the wording on that. I love the idea of like use the force, and it literally just uses your token.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can exhaust the leader and use the force to deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a different unit. And so that's just the leader side. Now, from like a flavor standpoint, I love this because the art is the double-bladed lightsaber maul. And so it's the idea of, you know, he's whacking 2 different units with his double-bladed lightsaber. So I adore that. Epic action is you can deploy on 6 resources, at which point Darth Maul becomes a 5/6 Force Sith unit. And on attack, deal 1 damage to a unit and 1 damage to a different unit. So at that point, no longer requires you to use the Force because, you know, surprise, Darth Maul just always has the Force.
Right. And it's cool because you know, it is a strong ability, but it does require you to have that force token and then use it, right? So obviously if you use the force token to do his leader ability, then you won't have it to go with any of your other cards that might use it that you're playing from hand or are on the board, unless you can find a way to generate it again, you know? So you could do something like start the turn with the force token from getting it previously, use this, then attack with something, get the force back, then maybe use it with something else. So it seems like managing how you're kind of bouncing around the usage of your force token is going to be sort of a core skill to playing these decks. And that's it's a neat example of how to do that. But let's look at some of the support cards here. We've got things like Darth Sidious, 8 for a 6/8 Force Separatist Sith, more Separatist support, hooray. Restore 2, and then when played, you may use the Force. If you do, defeat each non-Sith unit with 3 or less remaining HP. So kind of just comes out and takes out all the little units. So I mean, it's a little mini super laser blast. It's got restore on it as well. You have to have the force to use the when played, but if you do, this could be a pretty strong kind of lock down the board thing in a control list.
Yeah, when I saw this, I immediately thought there has to be some crazy hoops that you jump through to get the force outside of those common bases. I could be wrong, but that's my initial thought, because what I immediately was landing on is like, man, in something like a Kira deck or anything where you can do, you know, just a bunch of damage to the board as a setup and then play this to get that potentially like one-sided wipe, that is a huge play.
Yeah. I mean, well, right next to it, we have a way to get the force outside of the base, where we have Drain Essence, cost 2, Vigilance Villainy, deal 2 damage to a unit, the force is with you. So right there, you know, we have a card that does exactly that. It does give you the force token back if you don't have it, you know?
I was so surprised because, you know, like most people, I was going through this kind of in order. So when I saw Darth Sidious, I was like, wow, you're probably going to have to jump through some real hoops outside of the base. And then I immediately get to Drain Essence, and I was like, wait, there's a common that does it and it's removal? Yeah. What is going on?
I think there's going to be a lot of force getting thrown around here. But we've also got Darth Maul's Lightsaber, 3 for an upgrade. It is Aggression Villainy. Attached to a friendly non-vehicle unit. When played, if attaching it as Darth Maul, you may attack with him. For this attack, he gains Overwhelm and can't attack bases. Which, you know, being Overwhelmed is fine, right? I mean, if you attach it to the unit that we just saw, it would end up swinging for 9 damage. So that's usually going to be enough to take something out and do a lot of Overwhelm. Now, keep in mind that on attack, he can deal 1 damage to a unit, 1 damage to a different unit, so he can even weaken the thing that he's about to swing into to get that extra point of Overwhelm through. So there's I think it's going to be a pretty good swing turn to deploy your leader, play this on him, and swing.
Yeah, there is certainly that. The other thing that jumped out to me, if you're trying to like really create the tough for your opponent to decide what to do, when you factor in the Spotlight Leader deploys on 6, and if you play the just regular unit, the 5-cost Darth Maul, the turn before, then they have to choose which is worse. Because when I saw this lightsaber, I was like, wow, if you play this on the just normal unit Darth Maul, because that can attack 2 different units. If it's swinging for 9 with Overwhelm, but you're hitting 2 things and getting that, like, that's a big damage turn. Yeah. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it works great on the legendary Maul that came out in Shadows of the Galaxy too. Exactly. Or is it Twilight? It was Shadows, wasn't it?
That one was
it's so many expansions now.
Twilight.
It was Twilight,
not
wasn't
Shadows.
It? Yeah,
it was the one that we knew about it ahead of time because of the convention
That's why,
exclusives.
that's why I'm attaching it to the second
Yeah.
expansion, because we knew about it really early. Okay, well, either way, yeah, that'll be strong too. You could also play this with the Maul in green too. That swings for 7, and so you could theoretically swing for 11 with this. Obviously, you'd have to play it very late in the game, but it is fun to kind of think about. We've also got the ship too, the Scimitar. This is 4-cost, villainy only, Sith vehicle transport. 3/4. While this unit is damaged, it gets +3/+0. So you can use Maul to damage this ship yourself and give it that big buff too.
Yeah, this card is kind of crazy to me because it's just villainy. And there are so many decks that want you to harm your own units to get a benefit.
Yeah.
So this is something where, yeah, obviously it works great with Maul. Pretty straightforward. It should. But it also works pretty well with like Krennic, where you're already looking to do that stuff anyway. It works great as a counter to indirect damage, where you can suddenly turn this thing on. It works great with Asajj, where you can damage it to damage one of theirs, and it's a ship that she could potentially pilot, which then slaps the grit on top of it, and so on and so forth. So I really like that this is just villainy, and I kind of want to mess around with it because like I said, there are so many decks that want to take advantage of this ability and can do so.
The first one that jumped to my mind when I saw this was Asajj, because if you put Asajj as a pilot on this and there's one single damage on this unit, it'll be swinging for 10.
Yeah. Well, so another thing to point out that I think is really important as well, somebody who I don't think gets enough love when we start looking at new things that have been revealed, but this works great with the Grand Inquisitor because it has that base attack 3 as well. So you can play this and then, immediately ready it and swing for 6.
That's a great point too. I mean, and Grand Inquisitor, it's one of those leaders that we've been saying since the very beginning that like it's just going to keep getting better as more support comes out for him, Over time, that's just how it's going to be. And Scimitar, definitely a good example of that. The final card that we got to see associated with Darth Maul here is Savage Opress, 6 for a 9/6. So seems very overstated. It is Force and Knight traits, aggression, villainy are the aspects, overwhelm, and it says when played/when defeated, you may use the Force. If you don't, deal 9 damage to your base. So you kind of want the Force around if you're going to play or lose Savage Opress. You can play a big overstated overwhelm unit. You could even ECL him, but if you don't have the Force, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, ECL with the Force is kind of crazy to think about. So again, I go back to that. What are the ways that we can get it without the base sort of thing? That being said, I also am waiting for the folks that are like, well, I'll just close the shield gate and then plop this bad boy down.
Or, I wonder if there's going to be something that makes your opponent lose the Force. Can you make them lose the Force if they have it? I don't think we've seen any cards that do that yet. But I wonder now.
We haven't seen any that was revealed, but I would love something like that where, we already have, one with the Force or whatever it is, right? And that phrase from Rogue One is I am one with the Force is with me. I would love a card that just says the Force is with me, and it's your opponent loses the Force and you gain the Force.
Oh yeah, you just steal it away. Yeah. Or like
because it's not with you, it's with me, right?
Or like
so
you lose faith or something like that, and you lose the Force. That kind of sounds like a cunning thing. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. I feel like if there's a ton of ways to gain the Force, there's gonna have to be a way to take it away from your opponent too. Sounds like a good sideboard card for this expansion. But let's check out the heroism side. We got Qui-Gon Jinn, who is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. Force Jedi Republic. His action is just use an action, exhaust him, use the Force. Return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the returned unit from your hand for free. This is such a cool ability. The deck building potential, the play pattern potential, the decision tree potential is just out of control with this leader. He seems so cool right off the bat that you can, and sure, it's like a cheaper unit, but there's no cap, right? It can be a 6, it can be a 5 after you bounce a 6 back to your hand or something like that. So this can be such a great way to quote unquote heal your units. Play overstated units that are sentinels, something like that, and just keep bouncing those. There's all sorts of really, really interesting stuff you could do. You could play a big blue sentinel. It could take a hit, Then you use Qui-Gon's ability to bounce that to hand and play a Sentinel that's big but just one cheaper, and just keep doing things like that. So really, really interesting defensive capabilities right off the bat. But think about when playeds, bouncing those around. Like, there's so much fun stuff you could do with this.
When I saw this, the first thing that I thought about was Plo Koon, and then any interactions that also have like good when playeds. So like the idea is you ambush in with Plo Koon, get that value, and bounce him, and then play something else where you're getting a good when played. Or even if it's not a good when played, like it could be just set one Millennium Falcon, and now you're also readying that and swinging. There's a lot of, I think, really useful things that exist in cunning in general. I mean, that's the reason we've been seeing it do so well in competitive, but especially when you're looking at the when played, because one of the identities of cunning is this kind of return to hand mechanic. So Qui-Gon's just going to be able to play into that really well, I think.
Yeah, one of the most unique leader designs we've seen yet in the game, which just kind of goes to show that here we are, 5 expansions in at this point, if you're including this one that we're getting previewed now, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what you can do with leaders in this game. It's really, really neat to see something just kind of totally unique come out with this. But let's talk about when he flips. He's a 4/7 on flip, and then it says when this unit completes an attack and survives, you may do the same thing essentially. Return a friendly non-leader unit to hand, play a non-villain unit that costs less than the return unit from your hand for free. So same ability. Excuse me. Wow. Same ability. It's just on attack this time, and Qui-Gon has to survive the attack as well. So you
don't have to use the Force.
You don't have to use the Force. Oh, that's a good point. I missed that. You're right. You don't.
Just like Darth Maul, you don't have to use the Force. And
so
with us looking at a set where what I'm most excited about with this set, based on what we've seen revealed so far, is that we are essentially getting another resource to manage. And when we're thinking about it, because you either have it or you don't, and you're more than likely, only going to get, I'm guessing anyway, 1 to 2 uses of it per turn, it's going to be one of those things where you want to maximize your value from it, right? So it'll be a great decision tree thing for separating, good and great players. But another thing that's going to be really interesting to me as well is the action economy, because there are going to be things where you're going to need to, okay, I have to do this to get the Force to be able to do the thing. And so whenever I see stuff like this, where it's like you have this really powerful effect, but also when, this unit is deployed or when Maul is deployed, you can do it without the Force. Well, that's also kind of gaining an action in a way, because you didn't have to worry about getting it to begin with. So it's a really big deal. Yeah,
for sure. That's a good point. I didn't notice that with Qui-Gon there. So let's take a look at some support for Mr. Jin, Mr. Qui-Gon Jinn. We got Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course. Young Obi-Wan would naturally be at Qui-Gon's side. 3 for a 3/5. Command, Heroism, Force, Jedi, Republic. Man, that is a stack of extremely good traits. When you play a Force unit, including this one, this unit gains Sentinel for this phase. So kind of conditional Sentinel, at least when you play him the first time, he is. So kind of, it's almost like Heroism's answer to what the Royal Guard, right? Where it's a 3/5 Sentinel with conditions. So it's neat to see.
Yeah, this unit is kind of a house, in my opinion.
Totally. Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can turn on the Sentinel as a surprise. Again, kind of talking about that action economy where maybe you haven't played a Force unit yet, but then suddenly you do, and then it's turned on. But also with Qui-Gon, as we're talking about things where you bounce back and so forth, you said earlier, and rightfully so, maybe what you do is you play a Sentinel and it eats 1 attack, but if it doesn't get rid of it completely, and 5 health for 3 resources is really likely to survive.
Yeah.
Well, then you turn around and you return it to your hand, you replay like another 2-drop, and then you can slap him down the next turn as another wall again, right? It's just kind of a recurring wall that,
right.
I'm scared as somebody, again, who's been playing a lot of Iden lately, and whenever I'm looking at units that cost 3, I'm like, okay, can I open fire this or not? And this is not something I can open fire, and so I immediately hate it.
I mean, the other thing to consider too is that we've got the card right next to it, Refugee of the Path, right? 1 for 0/3. When played, you may give a shield token to a unit with Sentinel, Force and Fringe. So this is a very easy card to be like, if it's in your hand, it's going to be cheaper than nearly everything else that's on the board. So bounce a damaged unit back, and then play this, and then give the damaged Obi-Wan a shield, help it survive just one more hit that way at least. So I think there's already a lot of great support that we're seeing that's going to be just in this deck to capitalize on the ability.
Yeah, Refugee of the Path is absolutely somebody who is being transported by Bright Hope. I'll put it that way. They are a passenger full time on Bright Hope.
Yep. That is going to be one of the best cards to just bounce back to hand with that. That's a great point. Another Sentinel Space fits right in with Heroism. You get your Refugee right back again. You can toss him down, give Bright Hope a shield. Very, very cool. Let's move on. Tell us about Anakin Skywalker. I want you to talk about one here because this one has a new keyword here.
Yeah, I am so excited to talk about this because it's got a keyword that I just adore. Anakin Skywalker is a 1-cost ground unit that is cunning and heroism. It's a 1/1 stat line, force and fringe for the tags. Has the shielded keyword, so it's a 1-cost 1/1 shielded. However, also has a new keyword that is hidden. Hidden says this unit can't be attacked if it was played this phase. And as somebody who, I started playing this game because I love Star Wars games and whatever, but one of the things that really appealed to me about this is it has a very similar play style to a digital card game that I used to do coverage for called The Elder Scrolls Legends. And that had 2 lanes as well, but instead of it being like, just space and ground like it is in this game, the second lane was what was called the shadow lane. It was literally like your units were hiding in the shadows, and anything you played there essentially had this hidden thing. And it added a lot of dynamic to the way you navigate, attacking other units and trading with things. So I'm very excited that we are getting this keyword, even if it's just a keyword on units, because you will see that it will be a great way to get value out of units that you would not normally otherwise. We haven't seen it revealed, but I'm just going out on a limb. There's going to be a way where you'll be able to give your stuff hidden, whether it's a card, maybe a rare base or whatever. And if that's the case, a lot of the units that we are, leaving out of our decks, I'll say, where we've said, hey, this would be really good, but it just never survives to do its thing. Having access to hidden will potentially open up a lot of value from units that we just have not seen in the past. I'm so excited about this keyword.
Yeah, in a silly sense, I'm very excited about the fringe trait being on more cheap units because if you look at what other fringe stuff there is on the higher end cost, there are 2 of them out things like Wrecker on your second turn because he's 6 and he's fringe, or something like a Ray. So having cheap stuff with fringe in a weird way kind of buffs. Now there are 2 of them a lot in some really unique ways. So something to think about there is don't underestimate that trait line too. But yeah, the hidden stuff is very interesting because how many times have we played a unit and we're like, well, it's just gonna die, right? Now there's a keyword that kind of protects it, not completely, but in a way, right? It protects it from the board at least. So I'm very curious to see what other units are going to have this keyword because it could end up being just really, really strong. If there's a unit with a very strong on attack, having hidden on it could just be, very, very powerful. So this is a keyword that I'm a little bit afraid of because it removes a point of interaction for your opponent. It removes a way for them to respond to something that you do. So this is one I feel like needs to be treated delicately. But at the same time, it could be a lot of fun to just have the knowledge that, hey, I'm going to play this thing, and unless I have a way to remove it from hand, it's going to stick around. So that's it's good to have.
Yeah, it could be like that. I can understand the concerns, but I guess in my mind, while it is removing one point of interaction, it does kind of create a new avenue for what I consider to be the cat and mouse game, right? To me, this is something that's very similar to like Shielded. Shielded is something that technically takes away a point of interaction, but it also allows you to now do things where, maybe I steal the shields or I can get shields or go around shields or whatever. And Hidden is very similar, right? Where Hidden is almost in many ways, it's like it's a shielded that's just specific to attacking into it, right? All of the removal stuff still works on it. Abilities like when played abilities, etc. Now, granted, this Anakin also has shielded, so you got to do a little bit of extra work,
right?
But just like in general, it does remove one, but there's also, again, like long term, who knows if it's going to be in this set, and we haven't seen it revealed or anything, but what if we get things that also remove hidden, right? Like what if there's a unit that's like, it's
like a
got a giant
spy
spotlight on
thing,
it.
or
Or a spy where, you reveal
infiltrate or
all
something.
Bothan spies. They
Oh, there you
reveal all
go.
the hidden units or whatever. And
Well, they would be hidden probably.
yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones who are hidden. But yeah, I mean, maybe there'll be other stuff on the villainy side that reveals hidden units. That would make a lot of sense, I think, now that I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, the rebellion and those people are all trying to hide, and then the Imperials are out there trying to knock on doors, and where are they? And
Where's our ISB agents, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, we have more than just little guys with the Qui-Gon deck. We also have some pretty big ships in Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite. It's a 5 for 3/6 on attack. The next time you use a when played ability this phase, you may use that ability again. Wow. How about that? That is just kind of going to be a generically strong card, I think, in a good amount of decks. Same with Obi-Wan. That's one of the things I'm excited about is 3 out of these 5 cards I think are just kind of immediately useful in other decks that exist right now too. And I love it when older decks always get good generic support. And this is definitely in one of those, in that category. Interestingly enough, you have another vehicle with the Jedi trait. I think didn't Anakin's Interceptor have the Jedi trait as well? So it's not common, but there are a couple of them now. Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite.
Obi-Wan's, Anakin's, and then there is the blue, just like generic one that has...
Yeah, Jedi Starfighter, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that always is interesting to see Jedi pop up as a trait on a vehicle. But it is something that can be relevant from time to time. But man, just like what a really strong on attack, enabling a double when played,
Yeah, I think that this is kind of similar to what Chimera does for Thrawn, where you're double dipping on your power, if you will, right? Thrawn gives you 2 when defeateds. Qui-Gon's, hopefully enabling you to, bounce something back to hand and get a kind of a free when played effect. And then Chimera is when played, and then you get the when defeated. This one is on attack, you get the when played bonus. So, a little bit of a chicanery there, moving stuff around, but still really, really strong.
Totally.
I would not want to let this live for very long if I was playing against, honestly, any deck, whether it's Qui-Gon or not, because the worst thing that could happen is you allow it to stay. And, what happens when somebody drops... somebody drops what is it, a Radiant, right? And now they're just going to be
Radiant
dealing
7,
all that extra indirect damage and then nerfing your entire side of the board even further. Like I don't want to deal with that.
Or even something like you play the Aether Sprite, you attack with it, and then say you're well, I'm getting very deep into the what ifs here, but say you have the Force and you ECL in Qui-Gon Jinn's Aether Sprite, then you use Qui-Gon's ability to bounce it to hand, and then you play an Ahsoka Tano, the new Ahsoka Tano, for free from your hand then, because it's 1 less, and then you make them discard 2 cards and potentially exhaust units too. So there's some very strong combos too. I love the Aether Sprite attack into a double Ahsoka Tano discard as well.
Yeah,
that's mean. That is mean, man.
This isn't even counting stuff that you can do right in Cunning with things like Sneak Attack, where your opponent,
that too,
they pass initiative because you only have 3 resources left or whatever, and you're like
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you wouldn't even need to ECL. You could just put Sneak Attack and do that, and then use Qui-Gon's ability to just bring it back to hand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, this is very strong. So Sneak Attack the Aether Sprite, bounce it to hand, play the Ahsoka for the double discard, or whatever you want, right? Anything that's 4 or less.
And the best thing is because you've bounced it, you don't even lose the ship to Sneak Attack because it's not there at the end of the turn.
Exactly, yeah. Man.
Oh, Qui-Gon, you sneaky boy.
I like it. If only you were better at dodging. Our final card, our final Qui-Gon support card that we were shown with the deck is the Stinger Mantis. Another 5-cost ship. This one's a fringe vehicle transport. It's Heroism Cunning, 4/6 this time for the stat line, and when played, you may deal 2 damage to an exhausted unit. So, there's a lot of things in Cunning that exhaust units. This is just a great way to finish something off or do a little bit more damage to it. Seems like a pretty generally useful card. Not a auto include, but I think it seems pretty good.
Yeah, what jumps out to me about this, if I'm being entirely honest, one, while it was revealed as part of like the Qui-Gon package, it does have the uncommon symbol down there. So this is something that we can expect in the set at the uncommon level. And when I think about it from that, like, feels like a really good uncommon.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but notice that it is a transport and it's in cunning. And whenever I see that, I'm just like, oh man, that would love to wear super heavy ion cannon.
Yes. Make
because
it a 4/9.
If you're not familiar, super heavy ion cannon is on attack. You can exhaust a non-leader unit, and then if you do, you deal indirect damage to a player equal to its power. But also, because you're the active player and you can stack things, you could then also oh no, sorry, this is when played, not attack. For some reason I thought Stinger Manus was on attack. All right,
that would be crazy. Yeah.
Well, you can still slap an ion cannon on it after the fact. That's fine.
Putting an ion cannon on anything is good. So don't worry about that. If you've got the ion cannon on something, you get to attack with it even once. It's fantastic, right? But I think it is interesting that we have a cunning card that does damage. We don't see a lot of direct damage out of cunning. That's more of a aggression thing. So that's kind of interesting too that we have that included there.
We've been seeing it a little bit more lately.
We've been seeing indirect damage, but not like direct damage like that.
Well, this last set we had Electromagnetic Pulse, which is just a generic cunning card.
Oh, it's an event
can
though.
Also deal damage.
Yeah, I'm kind of talking stuff on units.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that it's been slowly kind of sneaking into cunning's identity, and I think that when you think about the identity of each of the different aspects, right? A lot of times there's something that is a primary for it, and then we kind of see others still maybe have access to it, but not at the same rate or not the same volume. So like a good example is Command has a bunch of ambush and Cunning has ambush, right? As well. Red has the direct damage. Cunning has a little bit of direct damage. We see Command has the units that deal damage equal to their power type effects. But then we also sometimes in red, I've been trying to think of it since I started this path and I can't think of it. The red card where you can basically have two units caught in the crossfire. That's what I think of.
They damage each other.
Damage, to each other, right? So again, something traditionally in command, but does show up in aggression. So we do see a little bit of bleed over, but
yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see some of that bleed over. Because again, like you said, it is kind of rare. Either way, cool card, neat support for that, and back to our key arts. So that's there were a couple other ones that revealed. There was like a Ravenous Rathtar, which is sort of a big vanilla red creature. There were a couple other ones here and there that I didn't grab the images for.
There was the big surprise though, the one that I thought was the most important.
Which one is that?
On the save for the last, the Porg.
Oh, the Porg. Yeah, I was never a big fan of Porgs, so that's maybe that's why I didn't include it. But I think it is an interesting card, though. It is an interesting card.
I think that they are one of the best things about. They're up there with Babu Freak for me, right? Like I love Porgs, but I'm somebody who I used to own pugs, and to me, Porgs are like half pug, half penguin. So. I mention it because there was a ton of uproar. There was a bunch of people that were upset that was like the final reveal or because in their mind they wanted something big. And so there were people who are like, oh, this set's going to be awful because that was and I'm like,
oh, please.
It's supposed to be fun, but the art as well. I'm saying this out loud. We need to grab it and put it as like a response or an emo in our community Discord because it's just perfect as a reaction image.
Yeah, I could make that happen. I do think it is a significant card too because it is a zero cost unit. That's not a token, and so that is something significant too because are we going to see it in a lot of decks? I mean, yeah, having a zero cost unit you can just kind of throw out there is leads to some interesting possibilities. So. It seems kind of funny and a little bit gimmicky, I'm sure, to some people, but I wonder if there is kind of some fun play patterns or some lines of play you can work into that.
I think that when we look at the types of things that you can do with it, right? When you're thinking about things like turning on coordinate or exploit, right? If you're trying to play something like Asajj turn 1, where you maybe just have one Porg and a 2-drop, but then you do the exploit. When I say Asajj, I mean the unit, right? The
right.
4-cost one.
Yeah.
You can do some pretty wild things with the Porg.
You just want to exploit the Porg, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just like they trying to do with marketing. Exploit the Porg. Isn't the Porg cute? Don't you want to buy Porg merchandise? Isn't your new best friend Porg? Have you heard about the wonderful plan Porg has for your life? I never bought it.
I just have a soft spot for all of the Star Wars creatures. That's why I like the Wampa. I have a big Wampa plushie just off camera over here.
Go grab it. I want to see it. I haven't seen your giant Wampa plushie. Let's see this. If you're only listening to the podcast, I'll try to describe it for you. It's a Wampa. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of a cartoony Wampa though too. It's like a sleeping Wampa. You can like drape it over something and it's just chilling. I like that. That's cool.
That's literally what I do with it. I drape it over the back of things like as a nice.
Yeah, that's neat. I like that. That is cool. All right.
I love all the Star Wars creatures.
I do like some of them, but I just felt like the Porg felt forced, you know, because there was so much like marketing around it too. It was like, behold, your new best friend, the Porg. I was like, okay, well, if it had just popped up in the movie and we didn't know it was coming and it was just kind of there, people would be like, oh, that Porg. But it was really kind of like, I felt like it was kind of forced down our throats a little bit when that movie came out. So you will love the Porg. I mean,
I don't disagree with you. If I had to guess, what I think probably happened is that, I mean, we know Disney. They do a bunch of test screenings. They do internal things, etc. And I would wager that a bunch of people, whether it was internal or in the test screening, said they loved it. And so during that period, they were like, okay, well, we'll do it. And then when it hit the wider audience, like you said, it did feel a little forced.
Yeah.
But well, I was, you know, when I was objectively like, would I have liked this if it wasn't forced? Yeah, I would have.
Sure. I would have been more receptive to it. And I think that's, not to get too off topic, but that's something a lot of marketing just for film in general doesn't understand, is that as a viewer, you like things better if you feel like you've discovered it, you know? If the Porgs are kind of just in there in the background, they're not like forced to the foreground and being like, oh, Porg, you know, then you kind of feel like, oh, that was kind of a funny thing. I'm going to tell my friends about that thing, right? And you feel like you discovered it, and so you feel kind of an ownership of your interest in it, you know? But when it becomes a thing where it's like, this is our new cute thing for the movie, do not you like it? You know, then it has the opposite effect, right? It repels people. And I don't know why marketing for not just Star Wars, but you can apply this to Hollywood in general right now. It doesn't get it, right? That the sort of ironically cute kind of things have to be organic, right? You can't force that kind of stuff. It's like trying to be viral on purpose, right? Remember when people were just trying to do that for a while? It just doesn't work. It has to be organic.
I will say, I do think that they learned their lesson, because I would have expected the same level of upfront push with Grogu, but they didn't, right?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I think that's why Grogu ended up becoming the massive hit, because instead of like before it was released,
starring Baby Yoda, yeah,
Baby Yoda everywhere. Yeah, he didn't even have his name revealed for the entire first season, right? Whereas we knew what Porgs were long before the film was out. So yeah, I do think they learned their lesson from that.
That's how you do it, yeah. And Grogu is an integral part of the story of Mandalorian too, where the Porgs just kind of are there, and they don't need to be there. They don't do anything for the story. They're just kind of there, right? But they're front and center. So yeah, it's a great comparison, you know. And I think people generally like Grogu a little bit more. Hence, we're getting a movie. Anyway,
Porg truther.
Anyway, you know, it's Porg truther. Jeez, that's our next shirt. That's our next shirt right there.
If you don't think I'm gonna not try to put lightsabers on a Porg,
you can. I'll just open fire it. Open fire on the Porgs. That's what I say.
Yeah.
But hey, you know, it worked because we're talking about them, right? But we're talking about it because it's a card, and it's a unique card. Having a zero cost unit with attack, I think, is pretty cool. So we'll see if that ends up leading to any kind of funky scenarios in the game. But yeah, that's about it as far as what we've seen so far for Legends of the Force. There's obviously an incredible amount to yet be revealed. I'm very excited to see, you know, what we see as we go into spoiler season again already. hard to believe that Jump to Lightspeed has been out for, as far as pre-release goes, for nearly a month now. And we're already looking towards the next expansion. I do like the gap between expansions. I do feel like we get a healthy amount of time with them each meta. But it is always fun to get into spoiler season. So it sounds like we'll be heading there soon.
Yeah, I would say that I think that they, at least right now, have what I would consider to be almost like the perfect cadence, where you never feel like you don't know what's coming next, but you also don't feel like you're getting information overload.
Yeah, like you don't feel like you're getting rushed into
other
it.
Products right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to talk about what's coming next, but there's still plenty of time to theory craft and play different things and enjoy a whole bunch of weeks of locals with the current set. So I do like the release cadence. I hope they stick to it. I think it's the best cadence you can have for card games right now. But anyway, that's about it. We got a couple minutes if you do, so we could do a mailbag thing. Oh, except that Discord is messing up, so I can't actually look at chat right now without removing you from the picture.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if we want to mess with Discord because it's been goofy, but
yeah, well, I can put you in Carbonite for a second and then do it. Watch, check it out. Boom, Charmer's in Carbonite, and now I can go look for mailbag questions. 1 second. How do you feel? How does it feel in Carbonite right now?
Cold.
Cold. Okay. Well, I'm gonna read the mailbag question, and we're gonna take you out of Carbonite. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here's a question here from Cerulean Reap. Hi guys, thanks for all the continued great content. Enjoying everything you're doing. Thank you. Found the Piet deck building really interesting, and as a big Vader fan, and the double green Vader build gave me some ideas, and I'm really looking forward to what you do for him with other colors. Will you be doing similar things for other leaders? And about Twin Suns, and this is yeah, okay, never mind. This looks like kind of a question where are we going to be doing stuff with other leaders? But yeah, I would imagine we're going to be doing more videos with the other leaders. I want to do one for each Vader color. And then, let's see, one last comment. When Charmer said he liked the idea of winning a Tauntaun as a prize, surely he should have said a Wampa. And I think he's right there. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
And Lightsaber Larry has another question. What aspect or combination of aspects do you like play against the least?
Ooh,
that's interesting.
That's a good question.
It's a spicy question. Let me take you out of Carbonite for that. I'm just gonna boom, you're back. Don't worry, you'll be able to see soon. The hibernation sickness will fade in time.
This is gonna sound bad because I think people are gonna immediately think I'm talking about Jango, but I'm not.
Okay.
For me, it's aggression, cunning, but it's not because of Jango. It's because the points that I have like the least amount of fun playing a game is when I feel like I can only get to do like one thing a turn.
Sure.
And so I have run into some decks that instead of just using like, targeted discard at key moments to disrupt what you wanted to do, right? Spark of Rebellion here, Ahsoka play there. If you've ever ran into somebody who's just running like Pillage, Spark, Ahsoka, Bodhi Rook, even with the aspect penalty, just literally like every turn you're going to discard something so that, at most what usually happens is like you get to play like one card a turn and then do your stuff. It just, and here's the thing. I think that stuff probably still should exist, but for me, it makes it feel like I don't have a lot of decisions to make because I'm really just making like one real decision a turn. So yeah, I would say that.
All right. I think that's pretty valid. For me, it's, and I want to clarify too, that it's nothing that's like, oh, I can't play this game anymore. But I always feel a little bit extra nervous when I'm playing against blue because of all the just single target spot removal in blue, where I'm like, I've set up all this cool stuff, but I'm just worried that it's just going to get removed, and I think that's an integral part of the game. I think we absolutely need those cards, but it always makes me a little bit extra nervous when I'm playing against Vigilance. So that would be mine.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know. It's trauma from practicing against you, I think, but it's it is also just a game. But it's like I said, it's a necessary thing. But so yeah, definitely send those mailbag questions in. We'll try to take a look at a couple of those each week, and that's it for this week. Again, the last question was about the issue that happened at the sectors of Milan. I think we're going to pass over that topic for the moment anyway. But again, put those questions in Mailbag and we will answer them. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode. So unless you have any final things to say, Charmer, join our Discord, follow all our stuff, and until next time,
may the force be with you.